Hey folks, welcome to the OceanState Cuisine. The last time I went food shopping, I was really in the mood to make a video, plus I was in the mood to make these stuffed pasta shells. But the market that I went to, they didn't have them. So instead, it still takes the same type of filling that I like to use for all these kind of pasta dishes. I ended up making homemade manicottis, also known as roll-up lasagna. So in today's video, we're going to dive right in and start cooking. Now normally I do show the ingredients that I'm using beforehand, but this time I'm just going to dive right into it. Heck, lately I've been even noticing that all the cooking videos that get millions of viewers, they don't even have commentary. So maybe what I'm doing is more old school. But anyways, I like explaining what I'm doing. So on a medium heat, I'm heating up my large skillet here, and I'm just adding some cooking oil, just so all the ingredients that I put into the pan does not stick. Now, most manicottis, most stuffed shells, a lot of different stuffed pastas, they either come with just meat or they come with cheese. But what I like is a mixture of both. And that's what we're going to be looking at in today's video, is that I'm going to be using sausage meat and also cheeses, which to me is awesome, and it's just a win-win. Okay, now with a potato masher, I'm going to break down the sausage meat. And as this continues to cook, it breaks down even easier. And then of course I'm going to stir it every now and then. Repeat this process as it starts to cook more. Now in the meantime, I'm going to heat up a pot of water here, and this is for the pasta noodle that I'm going to be using, which we're going to be seeing in just a moment. And yes, I did add some salt to the pasta water. So I'm going to bring this up now to a boil. Now the ground sausage that I'm using here is hot Italian sausage. So you don't have to add any seasonings, you don't have to add any salt, nothing to this meat. And you actually don't really have to cook it all the way because it's still going to go in the oven. So I cooked it about medium well. Now so that we could see it better now, I'm going to remove the sausage, and now I'm going to add the pasta water on this burner. And then in the meantime, while we're waiting for the water to come up to a boil, you want the sausage to cool down. The main reason why you want the sausage to cool down is so when we add the cheese to it, it doesn't break down the cheese. Alright, now that the water's boiling, I'm using these lasagna sheets right here. And these are not the traditional rippled lasagna sheets, these are flat. And these actually do not require being boiled. But because I'm going to be rolling mine, I need them to be pliable, so I have to cook them. Now it does look like a small box of these sheets, but there is quite a bit in it, and I'm only going to use about maybe like 7 sheets. And I'm going to kind of like crisscross them as I drop them into the boiling water. And no, I never add oil to pasta, because the reason being is because when you add oil to pasta, it can repel the sauces. And you want the filling to kind of stick to these sheets. As long as your water is boiling high enough, they shouldn't stick. If a few of them do stick, I'm going to give you a little tip later on of how to separate them. And then after about a minute, once they get a little soft, I'm going to push them down into the boiling water. Now because they are quite large, they're not like your normal pasta, they are pretty difficult to stir around, but try to stir them just a bit. It's going to help them not stick. So once they're cooked enough where once we go to pick them up like this using tongs, we could see that the sheets now are very pliable and they bend right in half without breaking. So that's a great indication right there that these are pretty much done cooking. But now once they're done cooking, what we want to do is we want to shock these and stop them from cooking. So what I want to do is I'm going to rinse them under cold water. So just remember, when it comes to making a dish like this, you always want to cool each step off. Now, if a couple of sheets do stick together, all you have to do is run them under cold water where they're stuck together and just gently pull them apart, and they should come right apart. Alright, now that our sausage meat has cooled down, next we're going to add a little bit of tomato sauce to this. And the tomato sauce I'm using is a jar sauce called Rayo's. Rayo's is a little expensive, but man, this sauce is incredible. If you're used to that homemade Italian flavored pasta sauce, Rayo's does not skip a beat here. And their traditional sauce is not sugary at all. Too many jar sauces today, they're just too sweet for me. So anyways, we're going to add a little bit right here, but I don't add too much. The reason being is because later on, I don't want it to be too runny. Because the cheeses that we add to this is also going to add moisture to the dish. So now next I'm going to transfer this into a bowl. And we're going to start making our filling. And again, I don't know if I said this earlier, but you want to drain off any excess grease or fats from the sausage before adding the tomato sauce. Okay, now next, I'm going to add a small container of ricotta cheese, however you pronounce this. And this is 15 ounces. Now, if you're cooking for a lot of people, you have a large family, of course you want to double the recipe or the ingredients. So I am using the whole 15-ounce container. And now I'm going to add some Parmesan cheese to this. And I add a good amount. That looks like I use maybe about a quarter to a half a cup. Now I'm going to hit this with some ground, fresh black pepper. I'm going to add some salt to this, but a very small amount. The reason being, Parmesan cheese has sodium in it, plus the sausage meat. So this is mainly for the ricotta cheese. And now I'm going to add some Italian seasoning to this mix. That was probably about a teaspoon and a half. And then I'm going to use some garlic powder. The reason why I'm using powder over actual garlic here is because the powder evenly coats everything. So you're not going to have garlic pieces in just one part of this recipe. It's going to be well spread out. And again, most of the seasoning is for the ricotta cheese because ricotta cheese, as we know, doesn't have tons of flavor. And then I'm also going to add some onion powder. And I would say that I'm probably using about a teaspoon of each garlic powder and onion powder. And then I'm going to start mixing everything together. And then for a binder and also to add some creaminess to the ricotta cheese, I'm using 1 egg. I just noticed in the video putting this together that it looked like there was a little bit of an eggshell in there, but I'll be okay. And then we want to blend this really good. And like I said earlier, I really love this filling right here because it's got both meat and cheeses instead of just all cheese and just all meat. And one of these days I'm going to come out with a recipe like this with all seafood. And you can use this filling for all kinds of pasta dishes, you know, stuffed shells, which I originally wanted to use, but I couldn't get the shells like I said earlier, lasagna, and even if you like making homemade ravioli. Okay, now next what I'm going to do is I'm going to place this mix inside the refrigerator and let it chill and set up a bit. Alright, now next I'm going to start working with the noodles. And I want to dry these off because it's going to make it a lot easier to work with, and the filling's really going to stick to the noodles this way. So I'm going to be using quite a bit of paper towel here. And basically I'm going to be getting each sheet of these noodles, just spreading them out on the paper towel. And if a little bit of the ends of these sheets hang off the paper towel, that's not a big deal. So let me speed up this section just a tad. Alright, so we get the point here. So now we're gonna start rolling these up and making manicottis out of them, all rolled up lasagna. So the fun part now has come. So I let the mix chill for maybe about 20 minutes. And at the same time, I just left the noodles out so that they could continue to even dry a little bit more. So I'm using a Pyrex dish and I'm gonna spray it well with some cooking spray. And whenever you make a lasagna or anything like this, you never want to add the pasta right to the dish because it's going to stick. So you always want to put a little bit of sauce first or meat mixture. But seeing our meat contains cheese, the best thing to use for this is the sauce. Alright, but before all that, what we need to do is roll these bad boys up. So I got a noodle right here, and I'm actually going to put the filling in the center. But first, I'm going to put a half a piece of provolone deli cheese. Now, if you have mozzarella shredded cheese instead, you could add that when you made the mixture. Or I should say when you do make the mixture. But all I had at this time was the provolone cheese, which I like even better than mozzarella because it has more flavor, and I think it even melts better. Unless you have the real mozzarella. So anyways, like I said, we're gonna add a half a slice of the provolone cheese right in the center of this noodle. And then on top of the provolone, I'm gonna add a good amount of the filling. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the noodle one end and we're gonna fold it right over the filling, where that end meets the other end. And then we're gonna start rolling it up just like you see me doing here. Now, if the filling starts to come out of the sides, just push them back in with your fingers. Rinse and repeat until you fill them all. And now I'm gonna add a little bit of the tomato sauce to the bottom of the dish that we're gonna be placing the manicottis on top of. Now, the reason why I only used a half a slice of provolone cheese is because I didn't have too many slices of it. But if you have enough provolone cheese, by all means, use a whole slice. Now next, I'm just going to start placing the manicottis on top of the tomato sauce. And again, let's roll one more. And I will speed it up here also. Now these are pretty large, so I'm only going to use 2. For the rest of them, what I'm going to do is freeze them, so I could always use them later on. So just in the form that they're in right now, I wrap them up in wax paper and then I put them in food storage bags, without adding any sauce to them yet on top or the cheese on top. So once you freeze them, you could always use them later on. Alright, so for the ones that we're going to be cooking right now, and in the meantime you want to preheat your oven on about 365 Fahrenheit. We're going to add some tomato sauce now to the top of these. Then on top of the tomato sauce, I'm going to add a full slice of the provolone cheese. Now once the oven is preheated, we're going to cook them now on 365 for about 30 minutes. Once they are done cooking, this is what they look like. Oh my God, are you kidding me? These things came out awesome, guys. You know, they sell frozen ones in the market, but there's nothing like the homemade. You know, you could add whatever you want to the filling. I highly recommend making this dish. But I also know that you guys are curious to see what the cross section in the middle looks like. So let's cut one open. But I advise, just like a lasagna or anything else, that you let this sit out and don't touch it for about 15 minutes. Maybe more like 10 minutes. Man, I need some sharper knives. Making a mess out of this thing. But anyways, we could see a little bit right there. We could see that it's fully stuffed, nice and cheesy. Just a little bit, just the perfect amount of oils in there to make it go down nice. I think I'm gonna have some later on today. Anyways, folks, if you serve this at your next gathering, you will be the star of the show. So I thank you so much for watching the Ocean State Cuisine. Remember to sub up and do all those other cool things to help in supporting this channel. And until the next time, you folks have yourself a fantastic day.